Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be talking about femininity and why the younger generations are trying to reclaim it. So I'm going to make a disclaimer that in this video I'm only going to be referring to heterosexual relationships and cisgendered identities. I don't feel qualified to talk about other identities and sexual orientations. So if you don't believe in the concept of masculinity and femininity, then this video is not for you. So first of all, I'm going to be talking about femininity. So what is femininity? So femininity is an energy that all genders can emit, but females are expected to show this energy more than others. So feminine energy is gentle, open, flexible, adaptable, expressive, and supportive. However, masculine energy has been dominating for thousands of years and feminine energy has been oppressed in society. So if you think back to even biblical times, women have been portrayed as being untrustworthy and the downfall of man. So think Adam and Eve. Women were unable to vote, they were unable to own property, and they were unable to have their own bank accounts. So towards the turn of the 20th century, women began to fight a lot more for their rights, and this saw the beginning of the suffragette movement. Then second wave feminism took place in the 1960s, and it really came into fruition in the 1980s. The 1980s saw an influx of women in corporate jobs, and women began to power dress. So power dressing is where women wore big clothes like big shoulder pads, and I think the purpose of this was to appear physically stronger and physically dominant like men. So it was the baby boomer generation who really embraced feminism and began to take on more masculine roles. So how did this change the dynamics of gender relations? So traditionally, from the beginning of time, men were the hunters and women were the gatherers. But in modern society, where most women work, women have now become both the hunter and the gatherer. So going out to your corporate job, that is modern day hunting. But it's really strange because women are now expected to do both. So they're expected to go to their jobs, but they're also expected to do the gathering, which is building up resources, looking after the family and the community, and taking care of the household. And I feel like this leaves women exhausted because it's not their natural state. So this might be triggering for some people to hear, but men are supposed to provide for women and children. And I believe that if a woman is in her masculine energy, then the man will be in his feminine energy in order to balance it out. And I really believe that this is how we've been operating as a society for the past 50 years. And I think that has led to some unhappiness and a decline in gender relations. If we look at the divorce rate, it's between 40 to 50%, which is not good. And I'm not having rose-tinted glasses. I know how things were like in the 1950s. I know marriages weren't truly happy all the time. A lot of the time the marriages stayed together because the women had no choice. They had no financial security on their own, so they were more reluctant to leave marriages. Whilst now, women are more independent, so it's much more easier to leave marriages. So things have improved for women under feminism, but I think there still is a lot of unhappiness. So why aren't women happy? This is taboo to say, but I think a lot of women are unhappy still because we're going against nature. I think in every relationship there's a polarity. So with heterosexual relationships, it's masculinity and femininity. I think men are a lot more passive than they used to be. I feel like the forward moving energy has all but disappeared. And I think it's because feminism has beat it out of them. So they're told that, men and women are exactly the same. Women can do anything a man can do, girl power. So obviously that has led to men being more passive and taking a back seat. Generation X and younger have lived in a world where it's offensive for men to hold the door open for a woman. We tell men that there's no need to court us in relationships, so don't pay for our dates, don't buy us dinner. And we've told men that we're sexually liberated. So a lot of men complain about feminism, but I think feminism has actually benefited men more than women. Under feminism, men can be mediocre and still find a woman. Women expect less from men than previous generations. So before time, men had to do a lot to prove their worth to a woman, and they had to do a lot to get a woman's hand in marriage. Now men get everything before marriage. So because women are now working, men can now split the bills and they don't have to protect and provide anymore. And they don't even have to earn as much percentage wise because women are now paying their way. Men don't have to put in effort to chase women anymore because we have dating apps, so they can just swipe right on anyone and get a sexually available girl at a touch of a button. And on dates, men don't even have to buy dinner, coffee will do. So a lot of the time, women are actually doing the chasing and men are resting in their femininity. So why are millennials and Generation Z trying to reclaim their femininity? So I think younger millennials and Generation Z are learning from the mistakes of their parents. So feminism has forced us to operate in our masculine, which actually depletes us of our life force energy. This is why a lot of women who are forced to live in their masculine, when they reach a certain age, they're just exhausted, they're cranky, they're not romantic anymore, they can't be bothered because it's all been sucked out of them. They're tired and angry, but they don't understand why they're angry. And then the men become confused. They don't understand why their wives are now suddenly angry and cranky. Because innately, women know that we shouldn't be living like this. We shouldn't be doing everything. When a woman has spent her day at work and then has to pick up the kids and then make dinner and take care of the household, how can she be a good wife to her husband? At that point, she's not a wife, she's a workhorse. Millennials and Generation Z see this and they see the divorce rate. This is why so many femininity channels on YouTube are popping up everywhere. The younger generation want to try something different. They don't want to be burnt out wives like their mothers. Also, I think social media is exposing what men think about women. So you have the red pill community who's always strategizing ways to take the most out of women without giving anything back. And you also have those alpha male YouTube channels, and none of those guys are alpha. So femininity is a way for women to reset and try something a bit different. So for the past 50 years, femininity has been shunned. We've always felt that to be successful, we have to be in our masculine. But I think it's slowly turning around, and I think women are now seeking their femininity. And I think there's a huge push to find men who are actually operating in their masculinity. So I think it's really great that we're seeking to reclaim our femininity and anything feminine is being embraced a lot more. But I think there are consequences to seeking femininity. Number one, it might be too late. So I feel like gender relations are too damaged to repair at this point. I feel like there's a lot of bad blood between the genders. And we have a generation of men who have the 50-50 mentality and they wouldn't know what a feminine woman even looks like. So how can we ask these men to be protectors and providers when they've never really seen it? I feel like if you went on a date with a guy in this generation and you told him that you didn't want to work, you just wanted to stay home and be a housewife, I think a lot of guys would be appalled and they would be turned off by that. I think a lot of guys are seeking women who have, high level jobs and can contribute to the household. So I don't know how hypergamy could actually work with the current generation, especially in Europe. So I might be a bit biased, but when I've spoken to American men on dating apps, I found that they're operating more in their masculine in comparison to European men. So if you look at online dating profiles, British men are more likely to state what they want from a woman, whilst the American men are more likely to state what they have to offer. So on the British dating profile, you find that men will make a lot of jokes. So they'll say something like, they'll fall in love with a girl that will buy them dinner. Whereas I don't see that so much on American profiles. On American ones, they'll say, I have a house, I have a good job. They'll be more likely to talk about what they'll bring to the relationship. Also, on American profiles, I find that a lot of men will say they're looking for a girlfriend or they're looking for a wife. And you never see that on British dating profiles. It's all about finding open-minded girls who are casual. So I'm not saying that American men are perfect. I know that there are still a lot of problems. But what I am saying is that the situation in Britain is dire. And don't get me started on German men. I feel like modern men seek women who portray masculine traits. I feel like they basically want a man but in a woman's body. And I've noticed that if there's a woman who's really feminine, then men see her as being high maintenance and they're turned off by that. So I feel like a lot of women in the femininity spaces are quite deluded and they have rose tinted glasses on. So a lot of women think that now that they've discovered femininity and they wear pink and they can put on makeup, then all the millionaires are going to go flocking towards them. But due to the current gender dynamics, I don't think it's going to be that easy for women who are millennials and Generation Z. I feel like there's a lot of work that's going to have to go into it because men are not naturally operating in their masculine and they're not protectors and providers like they used to be. And also, I think if you portray yourself to be a feminine woman, then you have to actually project femininity. So I think you have to look the part by always looking on point. I feel like you have to keep yourself in shape. I feel like you have to be nurturing and supportive towards your partner and take care of the household. And I don't think a lot of women are prepared to do that. I think they want their cake and to eat it too. I think the femininity journey is not as simple as putting on makeup. I think you have to really invest in yourself and work on yourself as a person. I think when women are operating in their masculine energy, it's more acceptable to be mediocre because, if you're working, looking after the kids, doing everything, then you're not expected to be 100%. Whilst if you're not doing those things, I think there's a higher expectation, that you have to look good and you've got to have those soft skills. So what I would say is that femininity is not the easy way out. It's not about just being cared for and not giving anything back. I think that there's a lot of work that you still need to do if you're resting in your femininity. So even though it's not easy, I still think being feminine is the better option for heterosexual women. So Generation Z know nothing about the oppression that women faced in the past. So I know a bit about this as a millennial because my grandma was raised in the silent generation and she had an abusive marriage. She was very oppressed. So if we have our rose tinted glasses on, then we'll walk right back into oppression. So I've seen a lot of feminine women belittle feminism and the Me Too movement, and I think that's a huge mistake. If we no longer think that sexism and abuse is a serious issue, then I think that we're just going to be setting ourselves up for failure. Yes, we do need to reclaim our femininity, but we also need to be smarter than our parents and our grandparents. So as women, we need to have a way of earning money without working like a workhorse, and we need to ensure that we are constantly fighting sexism and abuse. So feminism wasn't perfect, but I still appreciate it because it gives me the right to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to. So what we need is balance. We need to learn from our past, but also create something new. So to sum up, I'm really glad that we are deciding to reclaim our femininity because I feel like we've been operating in our masculine energy for so long. But I think that we need to be cautious about how we do it. Even though I'm glad that the femininity movement is happening, I'm still a bit pessimistic because I feel like the world is still invested in being masculine. And ironically, I feel like a lot of men nowadays don't know how to project masculinity. And when I say masculinity, I mean positive masculinity. As for me, I feel like I'm a feminine woman who's been forced into a lot of masculine roles. And if I was to have a relationship in the future, it would be one that has traditional gender roles. But I don't feel like I'm ready for that at the moment. I feel like I have to get out of that masculine mind space and deal with my trauma to truly be a feminine woman. So I'm going to wrap up here. And I know that there'll be a lot of people who object to this video because, it seems crazy that people want to embrace femininity. But I just think it's really important to fix gender dynamics. So if you enjoy my content, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a good day.